What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast. I am your host, Michael Erickson Facchin, and this is your place for all the Amazon advertising tips, tricks, and strategies you need to take your campaigns to the next level. Today, I'm joined by Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing today? Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks, man. I'm doing well. I can't complain. It's we're recording right in early December. I'm a holiday guy. I like the holidays. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah. Well.
Yes. The tree set up?
The tree set up. We went down. We just moved. So last, we love to go cut our tree down in the wild. You cannot do that here in South Carolina. So we had to go to a tree farm. Not complaining. We had the cocoa and the whole thing. The hot cocoa. It was a deal. It was fun, but we got our tree and it looks good. So.
Yes, I feel like going and getting your tree should be an event more special than just going to the Home Depot parking lot, which is where I got my Christmas tree. no hot cocoa there. So you were just watching Moneyball, the movie, which you just saw for the first time, and it actually inspired today's episode. And first of all, thumbs up, thumbs down on this movie. Did you like it?
Man, I give it a thumbs up. It's like my type of movie. Sports related, data related, good acting, great story, true story. It was a really good movie. I'm behind. It was in 2011, so I'm way behind the ball game on this, but I finally made it around to seeing Moneyball. So
yes, congratulations, welcome to the club. I feel like most people have seen this movie because it's especially most people that I assume who listen to this podcast. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. Find it somewhere online. What is it on? Is it on Amazon Prime?
Hulu.
Netflix?
Go to Hulu. Actually, that's how we searched movies on Hulu, and that was
yes.
It. So
that's the one. So yes, watch it. I think people that like PPC, like Amazon marketing, will find this movie really interesting. But how did it inspire this episode?
Yeah, so we've been kind of reworking our onboarding process for our software, and I was writing some emails.
I'm so excited about it, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna be good, hopefully, or not. It'll stink, but let's hope it doesn't stink. I was writing some emails, and I'm like, oh, this is a perfect illustration because Moneyball. If you haven't seen it or whatever, we're gonna spoil it for you. So basically there's a guy by the name of Billy Beane. He is the GM. There it is. General manager. Billy Beane he was the general manager of the A's back in the early 2000s. And I got to tell you, I'm a huge A's fan because I saw I don't want to rabbit trail, but I saw 3 home runs in a row by the Bash brothers and all that crew in 1989.
Oh man, magical.
Anyway, it was incredible when I was 10 years old. So Billy Beane, they had a budget, like a $40 million budget, and where the Yankees had a $120 million budget, and they lost Giambi and these 2 other players at that time, and they're like, well, how are we going to rebuild this? So they decided to adopt this strategy of looking at players in a different way. So rather than look at these big money players, they get their batting averages, their slugging percentages. There was a book that was written like in the late 70s that says the value of a player actually should be more contingent upon their on-base percentage rather than some of these other metrics. So they doubled down on the strategy, and they spent less than $40 million acquiring all of these guys that had a higher than average on-base percentage. And what happened during the course of that year, again, spoiler alert.
Movie's been out for over 10 years. No for post spoilers.
What happened? They didn't win the World Series, but what they did is they had the longest winning streak in baseball history at that time, which was like 20 games. And then, basically what happened was the Red Sox adopted the same strategy 2 years later, won the World Series. So they're saying that this event or series of events ultimately shifted the game of baseball because the way in which they were valuing players before, right? They had new data or data that was in front of them that they looked at differently, and that data put in action ended up to be prove true, although some people debate it, that you have to look at the data of a player differently. So the way that they valued players before was very different from how they valued players following that event, it's a seminal event in baseball history. I think it's fascinating stuff.
Yes. So I believe the connection to what we're talking about today, which is basically instead of players, we have search terms. And instead of home run and at on base percentage, we have other things like clicks, orders, ACOS. And essentially we wanted to do an episode, and I love this kind of episode because like the bar that I always try to use for what is a good podcast episode of the PPC Den is like, are we going to be able to give people listening when they are done listening, the ability to go and actually do something inside their campaigns, pick up a new habit to better improve things long term and in the short term. And I think this episode hits all of those things. So I thank you for watching this movie and sharing it because we are going to be talking about, how do you play, kind of like how do you play Moneyball with your search terms? Like how do you evaluate it and how do you make decisions on it? And really, like to me, I've always believed, like a long time ago, there's a company, WordStream, which is a Google Ads software tool. And we were using it at Search Scientists, and we were using it, and they had this activity report, and the activity report said like, hey, you're like among the top 1% most active advertisers. And it basically, and ever since then, because they had data on it, they basically said like, if you are an advertising account and you have more activity in your account, like meaning you log in more frequently and you look around and you make decisions more frequently than people that maybe set it and forget it and like are not on top of it, generally have better results. Like they have better return on ad spends and all this good stuff. So like the reason I love this topic so much, which are 3 weekly filters to do inside your search term report, is because it helps foolproof like success. Meaning like if you go in and you do these things on a regular basis, you will catch things faster and you will take action faster on things that need to get taken action on. So I love this kind of thing. So with all that, let's start talking about this.
Yeah.
And the first thing that is worth talking about is we're going to use words like a lot of clicks or not a lot of clicks or a lot of orders or not a lot of orders. Those are qualitative metrics, not quantitative numbers. Like we're not going to say over 10 clicks or over 100 clicks because that can vary a lot. Like high, medium, and low, like how many clicks you are getting per search term is very industry and company specific. It seems like a lot of discussion around Amazon advertising is all focused on the exact same kind of product, like people that sell products that are $20 and below have similar cart value. Like you can generally assume a lot of stuff, like what people consider a lot of clicks or a few clicks on a search term is going to be very similar if you have an average price point. But, we've seen plenty of scenarios where somebody's selling a product that's $100 or $400 and their conversion rate is going to be completely different than somebody who's selling a $10 product. So when we say a lot of clicks or a few amount of clicks, do know that is specific to you and your company. So like know your averages, very important. Like know your averages, what's your average conversion rate? And with that, that means how many clicks you need to get on a keyword in order to expect a conversion. So if you have a 1% conversion rate, that's 99 clicks. And then on that 100th click is where you get that 1% conversion rate. So it's very important to know your averages as you go into this big time.
Absolutely. And I would also add to that, when you do put something like this into the rhythm, into the structure of how you do things, I guess I'm constantly surprised of talking with PPC managers, business owners who don't know their companies, who don't know their data. And the reason that they don't know is because they're not in it. Yeah. Right. So when you put rhythms, tasks into your schedule to dive in and to be able to look at this data, you're going to get to know your own account. And that's where intuition really sets in, is when you do this enough, right? You're going to know, you're going to be able to tweak things where they need to be tweaked, and maybe experiment where you need to experiment. Mm-hmm. But that's why, establishing a rhythm, with some of the things that we're going to talk about, is very important for just knowing your own account. So,
big time. I used to watch a lot of Shark Tank. Shark Tank still going? I think so.
I think so.
And I used to watch a lot of Shark Tank, and entrepreneurs would walk in and they would say, oh, I want this much for my company. Is this valuable? And the sharks would start asking questions, and they didn't know the answer. I was like, get out of here. You don't even know your own business. So it's kind of like that. So the point of saying all that is definitely know your averages. And in general, if we say a low amount of clicks, that's generally, maybe 25% or 50% of your normal clicks per order. So if you normally get if you normally get an order every 10 clicks, let's say you have a 10% conversion rate on your ads, generally speaking. So that means a low amount of clicks is going to be maybe less than 5. A high amount of clicks is probably going to be in a 20 to 30 range. A medium amount of clicks is going to be right around your average conversion rate, so about 10. If you're dealing in terms of you on average have a 1% conversion rate, a normal amount of clicks per order is going to be 100. So then you have to work out from there, what a high amount of clicks is for a 1% conversion rate account. A lot of products that have higher order values are going to have a lower conversion rate. And with all that said, now that we sort of have framed up what we mean by high and low clicks, let's jump into the 3 weekly filters that you should be looking at when you look at your search terms. Let's jump into it. Alrighty, Ryan. So the first thing that I'll say is we are probably not using the view search term tool in the tab inside the Amazon ad console. We're not going to a certain one campaign, one ad group, viewing the search terms there, because it's going to be really hard to go through every single ad group individually that way. So for this, we're describing downloading the actual search term report in the reports section, so you can view every single campaign all at once. So I think that's first. Just wanted to establish that as well as we get into this. We are talking about the search term report, the thing that you open up and play with in Excel or Numbers or OpenOffice, or you upload it into Google Sheets. Lots of different ways to play with spreadsheets these days. What's your favorite?
I'm an Excel guy. I like Excel. And to add to what you're just saying too, for me at least, I just go right to the impression share report. It's got the 2 extra columns, 2 extra pieces.
2 extra columns. Yes.
That's kind of my go-to now. I call it the search term plus. There's some data in the search term, the impression share, that I don't know if I fully trust yet, but it's fun.
Amazon should call you for naming their things. But yeah, search term plus, the search term impression share reports gives you that extra column, gives you extra 2 columns of search term impression share and search term impression rank, which is really nice. So yes, now that we've established that, downloading this, looking at it on a regular cadence, I'm talking about weekly, maybe every other week. Please no less frequent than that. So if we're talking about it, what's the first filter that people should be running on here?
Yeah. So the very first filter that I think we should look at is looking at to see where you're getting the sales, right? So where is your revenue generators? Let's say, for instance, that you've determined that 10 clicks is a good amount of clicks to test on your particular price point of your product and where you're at in the product life cycle. Yeah. So what you would do is you would simply filter, anything with 10 clicks or more, and that it's getting at least 1 sale, right? And then you can sort that data by where your highest generating keywords or targets are, and take a look at where you're getting the love, where you're getting the conversions. That's a great place to start. And the reason why we want to start there is we talked about this before, going back to the Pedro principle spending. You look at to see where 20% of your 20% is giving you 80% results. I think people spend way too much time on stuff that's not going to move the dial. Going after those search terms, finding out those revenue generators, looking at those every week, making sure that if they are changing, why are they changing? Right? Sometimes you have, Amazon filters in when you type into the top of the search bar. Sometimes they are reprioritizing what some of those higher search terms are, and you may find that a week or two later, you're generating some revenue on some search terms that may have been in your third or fourth tier, but now it's up there. And the reason that it's up there is, we don't know this, you don't know how to test that, but could be that Amazon is putting that in front of the customer's eyes more, right? And so that's where you're going to get to see, this is why it's important. Get into the rhythm, use these filters. Hey, I got products that are $10 to $40 somewhere in there, 10 or more clicks with an order. What's bringing in the love? What's bringing in the most revenue? And figuring out ways to utilize that data to make really good decisions. So,
I love your perspective as a Amazon business owner yourself and a PPC optimizer yourself, because when you do this, and I love that you said you're going to sort it by most orders or most clicks down. Because that really does allow you to not only be sure you're bidding the right price for all of these keywords, but also the business intelligence that comes from seeing on a regular basis, like a farmer going and looking at his livestock of oh wow, how's everybody doing today? Is everybody healthy? Seeing those top keywords front and center allows you to start making decisions on them. Hey, am I also ranking high for this organically? Do I need to go make any changes there? Or hey, I think I remember this keyword normally converts at X percentage, but in this report it's actually something different. So having that real intimacy with those top revenue generators, I think is a great way for people to really get up close and personal with the things that matter, talking about the Pareto principle and Moneyball, really be focusing on the things that actually matter. So are you bidding the right price on these things? And we talk a lot about bid optimization. And then I think there's another really interesting consideration to make when you look at these revenue generators. So after, are you bidding the right price? Is there anything up with it? The third kind of thing to think about is your campaign structure set up in a way that is best? Are there any campaign structure considerations to make for these search terms?
For sure.
Maybe it's in an auto you're getting this impression. Maybe you want to play with a broad, maybe vice versa, whatever it might be. Definitely something to think about here. Because campaign structure is one of the most important components of your visibility.
Absolutely. And I would also say with regard to structure too, if you're trying to build something that's going to go the distance. And what I talk about with our clients, the ones that I get to consult with and talk with, is my goal as a business owner. And I tell people, hey, you figure out your own goals. But my goal as a business owner is to get the biggest relevant footprint on Amazon, right? And what's the best ways to do that? And as you were talking, I know we didn't talk about this before, but the biggest revenue generators, sometimes what I'll do is I'll float higher ACoS on words that may be that second, third layer out of relevancy, but there's high traffic and I want to rank on those words because I know that I have some of these lower targets because my overall count is a particular ACoS. I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, can I push this a little bit farther, right? It's bringing me a lot of revenue. I'm paying for it, maybe losing a little bit of money. But yeah, again, what you're talking about is knowing those targets intimately so that you know which decisions that you're making with them. Absolutely critical. So
yeah, and of course, really quick to sneak in this too, looking at your search term impression share on those key revenue generators as well. Just being sure, hey, this keyword is a good revenue generator, but why am I only in search term impression rank 4? I should probably step on the gas on that. So factoring that into your bid optimization cycle, I think is a really strong activity that you should be thinking about on a regular basis. Let's move to the second category of sort of filters to run, which are going to be the flip side. How about instead of revenue generators, we are looking at things with high clicks, no orders. So again, these are sort of things that are 2 to 3 times your averages. And, when you're doing this activity, what goes through your head when you're processing high clicks, no orders?
Yeah, so a couple things. So you want to make sure the look back period is also, if you're looking at a 7-day back or 14-day back or 30-day back, time period. Sometimes keywords have a bad week, right? And why do they have a bad week, right? Again, we go back to those. Say you're looking at 10 clicks is kind of that, 10 clicks, no orders. So you start to dip up to 12 to 15, maybe even 20 clicks. That's where you want to put your eyeballs on it. You're going to ask yourself the question, is this relevant to my product? Where you ranked organically on it? Is this something that we just want to drop the axe on and negative, either negative it out or archive it? Or I don't know, we've talked about this in another episode. But what I do, if I have converted on it consistently in the past, is I drop it into my low bid lottery campaign, and I'll shut it off in that campaign, and I'll dump it into that campaign, and I'll put a low bid on it. And again, my goal is to get the biggest relevant footprint. If I can scrounge up some cheaper traffic, why not? And those are just some of the things that I do with regard to these, where you're starting to get into those higher clicks and no order range. Whether I'm going to negative it, archive it, move it. The worst thing you can do is just not even notice it because you're not even seeing it. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why this activity of doing it on a regular basis, again, weekly or every other week, is so critical. Like is there anything you need to go add a negative keyword to convert into a negative keyword? Looking at your search terms and seeing if there's anything that's an obvious negative, to me, that's table stakes. You really need to get that dialed in. Anything else to say about high clicks, no orders? Really just, the one last thought that I have about it is people really need a game plan going into it before they download their search and report, meaning you don't want to wait like when you're looking at it to then start like hemming and hawing like, do I want to let this go or not? Really have a click threshold in mind. So Tell yourself like, hey, I'm only going to let something go X amount of clicks before I really start scrutinizing it, before I'm really like contemplating to turn into a negative or stop pursuing that sort of tree of terms. So I think having a game plan is really, really helpful. So I think that's a business level decision.
Yeah, and I would also say there's a couple other things to take into consideration too with this is where you're at in your product maturity, right? Yep. So if you're launching a product and you're going after the big dog, right, you're probably going to lose a lot of money, a lot of clicks, right? So, and the other thing to really think about as well is placements. If this target, if this keyword, if this ASIN is a couple layers outside of relevancy, could you up placements in the top of search to see if you can get some more love on it? And again, it's something you're going to have to test, something that you're going to have to see. Keep eyeballs on it, know what to do with it. So
yes. So that's the second filter to really start running, sort it by clicks, no orders. Now, the other thing is going to be, what do you do with things that just have low amounts of clicks? And this is probably the most frustrating area because it's often a gray area because it's something, if you normally convert every 10 clicks and you see something with 30 clicks without an order, pretty well what to do there. So you can go in there and take some good action. But what do you do in that scenario where you have something with only like 4 clicks? And what happens when you have hundreds of these things with only 4 clicks? This is where it can get pretty tricky. We talked a little bit about this. We talked about this concept about what to do with these low click items in episode 63, which we will link to in the show notes here. But this category, it's going to make up it's going to make up a lot of the spreadsheet. Like there's going to be a lot of rows with things that have 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks. in that scenario. So we need to make decisions about what to do with these. So when you are approaching a search term report and clients are asking you, like, what kinds of things are you looking for, and what kinds of decisions are you making with these low click searches?
Yeah. So, very first thing that my instinct goes to, but there's a lot of nuance to this, but my first instinct is to say, okay, it needs a higher bid. It needs a higher bid in order to get the impressions, in order to get the clicks, to really see how it's going to perform, right? Mm-hmm. That being said, there's a couple things to take into consideration when you have low clicks. Whether or not that search term or that target is getting, whether or not it's a medium to higher, let's just take a search term, right? Whether or not it's getting the actual searches, right? It could be a very, you could be getting, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 a month, and it's really not getting the traffic that you need in order to get the clicks, right? So, and maybe it is a target that it's a strong converting search term. You just haven't gotten any clicks on it because no one's searching for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. I love that. And that's why I really do advocate downloading the search term impression share report, because that will answer the question. I just had a client reach out the other day and, they said, hey, this term is really relevant for us, but, I'm bidding and I'm not getting any traffic for it. Is it my listing? And we downloaded a search term impression share report. And it actually turned out, well, he was actually ranked in position 1 in terms of search term impression rank. So he was getting the most impressions out of all of his competitors for this term. And we were able to see the impression share report. He was actually capturing, 99% of all the impressions. So he was getting all the impressions for it that he possibly could. He was in the number 1 position. It was just a lower search volume than he anticipated because he was using like a keyword search approximator. And again, those tools that we use to approximate search volume, it's just an approximation. But your search term impression share is really the source of truth for what the traffic was during that time frame on Amazon. So I think that's a really key observation to make, and it can help alleviate some of that, frustration that people might have, like, hey, how come I'm getting no traffic for this? Well, maybe it's just, not in season, or it's just not as much traffic as you thought for that term.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and this, we're right in the middle of Christmas season right now, right in the middle of the holiday season. And what's happening? We just opened up a search term report to try to manipulate some data and take a look. You get seasonal search terms that are coming in waves right now, right? Because you're getting a lot of traffic on Amazon. And again, going back to the rhythm of this, you do this consistently. There's certain products that are seasonal, right? That are the waves of the increases of those terms. The volume is going to increase at certain times, different parts of the year. That's why getting into your reports, putting this into the rhythm of your PPC management life is important, because as these seasons come, you're going to be able to turn and really open up some sources of where you're going to get, potentially get more traffic that you're going to convert on. And at the same time, I mean, Michael, by the way, is a wizard at Excel, and I just watched it firsthand. But you did a pivot table and you found a term. You manipulated in some data and you found one word, and if that one word was in the term, then you're looking at a 70% ACoS when the average was about at 29 or 30% ACoS. And so if you're able to get in there and to be able to look at this data, to be able to use the right data, be able to be the Billy Bean and look at the data that's going to move the dial, look at the data that's going to make the difference. That's where it's at. And I would also say, even after thinking through this as well, there's different markets respond differently. As you talked about earlier, the different price points of products, the higher the price point, you may instead of going 10 to 20 clicks to see if it's a you could float that up to 40 or 50, because if you get one conversion and 50, 60 clicks, you're still going to be within your target ACoS. You got to know your market. You got to be able to say which of that, what pieces of that data are going to be most important for you for making good decisions that are going to make real change. So
yes. No doubt. So in terms of these low clicks, we have the being able to say, should I be increasing my bid on these? And you can really use the search term impression share report to tell you that, like, yes, you should, because you're not capturing, you have a low search term impression share. So boost it up, boost your bid, and you'll capture more of that. And the second thing is, of course, aggregating some of these low click data. So there's just some things get searched so infrequently that when you combine the data for these, when you use a pivot table, you can really zero in. So you don't have to use a pivot table. You can simply, in your search term impression share report, click the filter button, and then just start typing in common themes from your keywords. So for example, if you see the word blue showing up a lot in a lot of different places, you can go ahead and filter for, show me the performance of every single search term with the word blue in it. And then you can start to say, okay, well, when blue shows up in a search term, even though like blue running shoes was only searched once, but then you have like blue running shoes and, men's running shoes that are blue and like women's running shoes that are blue. You start to get all these different terms with the word blue in it. And you can start to find the trend that says, hey, every time the word blue is in a search term, my average ACoS for all of these things is like 70%, whereas my average is only 20%. I can start making decisions on that. So you definitely want to use some kind of aggregate data when you're looking at your low clicks. It's definitely an activity that is worth doing. We talk a lot about this in episode 63, so be sure we'll link to that. I got
one more. I got one more thought as you were just talking, because some of you may be overwhelmed by this. I know I was when I first started way back in the day, right? And, just simply by downloading your search term report once a week, and getting in and doing these 3 simple filters, right? And when you don't know how to use Excel or whatever, spreadsheet tool, you get on YouTube and, figure it out how to use it, right? Just do it consistently. Put in the rhythm 21 to 40 days. Right? Because once you set that rhythm in place, three simple filters, you're gonna maybe I need to look at click-through rate. Maybe I need to sort by click-through rate of these top performers, to see, you'll learn on you want to be able to put these things into the rhythm of your business so that you can, again, make those decisions down the road that are going to be very important. The other thing that I want to tell you too is search term reports, when you're diving into them on your own product, you're going to see other opportunities of what people are searching for maybe other product launches. That's a whole nother episode.
I love
it. But that's been a big success for my wife and our business in the last 14 months is the
bonus filter. That's the new opportunity filter. So in summary, we have 3 weekly filters. Don't let this go more than 2 weeks without doing it. So at least every other week, you want to scan for your revenue generators. Be sure you're paying the right amount. Be sure you are considering any campaign structure things. Maybe those top keywords, you want to move from sponsored products over to sponsored brands. Amplify it. You want to look at high clicks and no orders to determine when you should be pulling the plug on certain things. And of course, you want to be looking at things with low clicks to see if you need to bid increase or if you can do any aggregate data analysis to find any common trends in your search term report. And with all that, also your homework, go and watch Moneyball if you haven't seen
it. All right. That was great, man. That was good.
Yes. From the PPC Den to you, have a fantastic December. We will see you next time. And go download your search term report. Set a reminder in your task manager of choice and just go get it done. Have a good one, everyone.
We'll see y'all.